conversations around trans rights and gender reform increasing as we get closer to the election. We were talking about things that weren't in your manifesto. The only time the word gender appears in the SNP manifesto is in reference to the gender pay gap. Did you avoid using that word on purpose?
No, I think we've set out in our manifesto the propositions that were taken forward to the people of Scotland, and we do that in an open way to set out what we believe in and what our priorities should be.
Okay. Your stance on gender identification, then, let's just probe that a little bit more. When you became leader for the second time, only last month, the author J.K. Rowling accused you of, in her words, obfuscating and blustering to avoid the dangerous words, "women's don't have penises." What is your stance on gender ID?
Well, what I believe is that we've got to take forward this debate in a respectful fashion. It's a really difficult subject. I'm aware of, obviously, the tensions and the difficulties that exist on this question. And we've got to try to advance on this issue in a fashion that listens carefully to different points of view. The Scottish Parliament came to a conclusion about gender reform. We passed legislation that was supported by members of all 5 political parties in the Scottish Parliament, and we brought forward that legislation. Now, that legislation can't be implemented because of the court action that was taken by the United Kingdom government. So we cannot implement that legislation as things currently stand. But what that legislation was a product of the decision-making of the Scottish Parliament, supported by all 5 political parties.
Talking of different points of view, there has been reports of a disagreement between yourself and your Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, on this exact topic. She said that J.K. Rowling took a principled stance and said that she actually supported J.K. Rowling's views on trans rights. Are you listening to all of the women in your own party?
Of course I am. And that's part of what I said to my party when I became its leader just about 7 weeks or so ago, that I wanted to create an environment for respectful debate where we listened to each other and we had open discussion and open debate about our priorities, and we come to conclusions. And once we've done that, we take that agenda forward. Now, I've spent the last 7 weeks, yes, involved in an election campaign, but also bringing my party back together again. And I think I've succeeded in that mission. My party is cohesive and focused and united. And crucially, it's respectful of different points of view, and we'll consider those points of view and come to our conclusions.
So the question is, was that cohesiveness not there before? And equally, Kate Forbes, Deputy First Minister, has said she had so many significant concerns when it came to the Gender Reform Recognition Bill. Had she not been on maternity leave, she would have not voted in favour. We have a First Minister and Deputy First Minister not on the same page on this very important issue, don't we?
No, I think what we've got are people who are prepared to work together for common cause and to listen to each other with care and to listen to all of our colleagues with care and to bring people to points of agreement. And that's precisely what I've done since I became leader of the Scottish National Party. And it's what I'll continue to do in that role. And also, crucially, in my role as First Minister of Scotland, I recognise, and I said this in my acceptance speech to Parliament, that the country and Parliament is intensely polarised just now. And I have to use the office of First Minister to bring people together. And that's what I intend to do.
We're just going to get through as many last questions as we can. Single-sex spaces then, you've expressed confidence that they are being protected already under the Equality Act. How do you convince women listening who think the opposite?
Well, we've got to make sure that what is in legislation is turned into a practical reality, and that we do have the provisions in the Equality Act 2010 are utilised to ensure that single-sex spaces are used in a way that protects the security and the safety of women and girls. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing I want to do which jeopardises the security and the safety of women and girls.
Okay, we're just finally going to ask you about maternity pay, because many of our listeners will be interested in your view on that. There is a pledge on maternity pay in your manifesto. You say you'll increase maternity pay a year with 100% pay for the first 12 weeks, 90% after that. We also know that the Institute for Fiscal Studies say an independent Scottish government would have some very difficult decisions to make on taxation and spending. So that is a hell of a pledge. How are you going to fund it?
Well, what the Institute for Fiscal Studies say is that, yes, there are challenges, but also with independence, we'd have more powers at our disposal to create greater economic activity in our society. And when we look at small European countries like Ireland or Sweden or Denmark, these are higher performing economies and countries than Scotland is today. And that's who we seek to emulate in taking forward our agenda of independence.
John Swinney, thank you so much for joining us on BBC Woman's
you.
Hour. John Swinney, Scotland's First Minister and leader of the Scottish National Party, the SNP.